Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ken Bone Zone milestone episode number 31. We're so happy to have you here. It is a milestone because I have back in studio, quote unquote, with me, my good friend Josh Burkett, back from his scheduling hiatus that we've screwed up over the last couple of weeks. How you doing this week, buddy?
I'm good, man. 31. We're a Baskin-Robbins flavor now. That's fantastic.
Absolutely. I am as vanilla as it comes, and you are the sexual chocolate.
That's a first for me, but yes. I'll take it.
I'd take it too, if only you were a little closer to Southern Illinois. I've befuddled myself with that one.
We're all smoldering in
the show's already off the rails, and we're 35 seconds in. So sorry for the weird schedule lately, everybody. What's been going on is 2 weeks ago, I got tickets to Phantom of the Opera for my wife and I, which we never, ever miss when it comes to town. It's like a tradition of ours, and we've gone every time since we've had an actual career where we can afford theater tickets. It's our favorite musical. And so we went Thursday night. Well, that was the only night that Josh was available to record, so we had our special guest co-host, Jericho Keene, who is our editor, so thanks, Jericho, for being on with us. And then last week, we didn't have an episode at all because I got bronchitis, which I am just now getting over, and ain't nobody got time for that. We're crossing the meme streams with Ken Bone the meme getting bronchitis. It's a really incredible thing. Next thing you know, there'll be videos of me coming home from the dentist all high on nitrous or something. Getting into every possible meme. So yeah, sorry about that. And then in addition, I was also traveling for work, but lots of great stuff. I was really happy that we were able to make it to Phantom. I think this is the third time that Heather and I have gone. And the first time was probably the most memorable, as it was only about 3 weeks after I started my first real job where we had enough money to buy theater tickets like adults. And so I wore my best suit, and we go and we sit down, and we're in the aisle seats. I'm in the last seat on the aisle. And this little old lady walks by me. Everybody's dressed all beautifully. I excuse myself to go to the restroom before the show starts. I come back and sit down. This little old lady walks up the stairs of the aisle past me, and she stops next to me and drops her purse on the floor. And as she's dropping her purse, before it even hits the floor, she says, "Thank you." Okay, that was kind of weird. That didn't make sense, but I pick up the purse and hand it to her, thinking she must have been anticipating me handing her back the purse. So she said, "Thank you." Well, about 3 minutes later, she comes back down the stairs with one of her little old lady friends who must have been there at the show with her, and they both stop next to my seat in the aisle for about 10 seconds, and they just kind of stop there, and I wonder if they're going to say, "Oh, this is the nice young man that handed me my purse," and I think that's way out of proportion for just handing a lady her dropped bag. But they don't say anything, and they just walk by. And they come back a couple minutes later, and then 2 minutes after that, they walk down with their whole row, all of their college and young mother-aged nieces and granddaughters and just all the ladies that they're there at the show with. And they all walk by in a procession, and they all stop next to me for about 5 seconds at a time and turn and look at me. And it was this bizarre experience. I had no idea what was going on. And I turned to Heather, and I'm like, "What? Why are all these people stopping and looking at me? I've never been to the theater before. Is this a normal thing to, get acquainted with the people in the aisle?" And she's like, "No, that's weird." And she looks at me, and she's like, "Well, the problem probably is that you didn't zip up your fly when you left the bathroom." And so I look down, and my suit pants are as splayed open as they can be in the zipper region. And I was wearing loose boxer shorts, and my testicles had actually come out of the leg of my boxer shorts. And so every one of these women was actually stopping to look at my nutsack.
Oh, man.
So they got a little show before the show.
So they kept coming and grabbing more people. Guys, you got to see this.
They kept going to get more people, and they're like, "This guy has basically got his junk out at Phantom of the Opera." I mean, and his ball sack kind of looks like the Phantom's messed up face. I don't know if it's part of the show or not. I don't understand. Blanche, you got to see this. You've never seen a set on a fat man like this before. You got to check this shit out. And by the time 10 or 12 different women have looked at my testes, I finally figure it out. I'm like, man, it is cold here in the Fox Theater. It is breezy.
Breezy.
In the dick region.
Did this happen to be a lovely olive green suit by chance?
Not that same suit. That was a few years before that suit. This was a more traditional navy or charcoal colored suit, I want to say.
See, I'm really tempted to just turn this political and be like, see if the media got a hold of this story, they would claim that you were the perpetrator for showing your junk to 12 innocent women when they were the ones actually being dirty.
Yeah. I will say unequivocally that it was not intentional and that those women went out of their way to see my balls. So, and if the media gets a hold of this story, please be sure to include that you can find this show at youtube.com/thekenbonezone. That's the Ken Bone Zone. youtube.com/thekenbonezone. And if you put this part of the clip in, I give you my full consent to run my ballsack story on TMZ.
How have, man, I feel like we have talked so much about each other's stories, and we know each other pretty well. I've never heard this one before. How did this not come up?
I didn't think that you had heard this one before, and since we were at Phantom and we missed a show, it made me think of this story, and I was like, I don't think I've ever told Josh that. So this obviously was after college. You had you were living up north already, and we weren't hanging around a lot because you were far away. But yeah, it seems like during a holiday get-together, we could have traded this one before.
No doubt. The sad thing is, though, now anytime I see Phantom of the Opera now, I will think nothing except Ken's balls.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole thing.
Just see the Phantom mask, and like next time you see the show or see the movie, when Christine pulls away the Phantom's mask, you just imagine my nuts. That's what's under the mask.
Think of me.
Think of me fondly.
Oh, man.
Yes, it was quite an ordeal. It was the best thing to happen to legitimate theater since Andrew Lloyd Webber himself. Was my balls.
Was your balls? Well, you definitely made those ladies' night.
Absolutely. They didn't know they were going to get a pre-show show. But now I imagine that they tell each other this story at Thanksgiving, and I hope, against hope, that one of them makes the connection that, oh my God, that was that weird guy from the debate.
That was that guy. That
I can't believe it.
Yeah, they're watching the debate. They see Ken Bone pop up at the screen, and then it's, oh my God.
Gladys is watching the debate, wondering who's going to get the better of who, and oh my gosh, all this shocking stuff at the debate, and the Clinton accuser women, and wait a minute, I've seen that guy's dick.
You might have given him a stroke.
Oh, they might have given me a stroke if somebody hadn't been around to stop him. Zing!
Oh, well played. Man.
Yeah, now
I'm speechless. I'm rendered.
Yeah.
Just speechless.
Yes. We're not even doing a show about news anymore. I'm tearing up the show notes, throwing them away.
Yeah.
We're not going to top that.
We could stop right there, and this is quality entertainment.
Yeah, but that's just a little glimpse into my life, to the glamorous world of internet D-list celebrities. So inadvertently flashing your genitals to little old ladies at the theater. Oy. So anyway, yeah, I also got bronchitis in an unrelated story. And with that, I suppose we'll jump into the news, which nobody cares about now that we've been talking for, probably 10 minutes about my ball sack. Great first segment. Now we'll talk about some things that are just as unappealing as my balls. First one being Tommy Robinson. I don't know if you've been following this story. Tommy Robinson is he's like a blogger. He's not like a real journalist, but he's like a blogger over in Britain. And so what happened is a while back he got in trouble for filming outside of a court, which you're not allowed to do in Britain. And so he got a suspended sentence. Back then they're like, all right, we're not going to put you in jail, but you can't do this anymore. Well, he did it again. There is a court proceeding going on with some, I think they're Pakistani immigrants. I could be wrong on what nationality they are, but they were definitely immigrants. And they are going to court because they're doing what's called a grooming gang, where there's an organized cadre of these immigrants that gather up little girls and recruit them for child sex enterprises. And, they have sex with these little children. And the grooming part is they make sure that the kids aren't going to tell on anybody. Well, they got caught, and now they're going to court. And the English government doesn't want anyone to talk about it. So there was an order that says, hey, you can't film even outside of this courthouse when these people are walking in and out. No film. And the UK is getting closer and closer to a state where you're not allowed to have freedom of speech or press or anything. And Tommy Robinson was filming with his cell phone, and so police came along and loaded him up into a paddy wagon, and within a day, he had been given a prison sentence of over a year. So he's in jail now. He's in jail. He's going to be in jail for over a year. The last time he went to jail, he got on the wrong side of some powerful people in government, and they ended up being able to send him to jail for some kind of mortgage wrongdoing or mortgage fraud or something. He was in jail for a few months, and he got beaten so badly that he lost almost all of his teeth. Because he's like a very, very right-wing, very conservative guy, like anti-immigrant, Muslims should get out of England, that kind of thing. So he's not the nicest dude in the world. I'm not going to defend him and say he's a great guy. Sure. But he goes to jail with these, in these jails there are some Muslim immigrants that are in there, and they beat the hell out of him. He almost died. And now his lawyers are saying, look, you put him in the general population for 13 months or 15 months, whichever it was. That's a death sentence. He's going to get killed. And the judge basically said, I don't care. He shouldn't have had his camera out then. Other media outlets in the UK start picking up on this story, and then the judge orders them, hey, you can't even talk about this story. So in the United Kingdom, you're not allowed to talk about Tommy Robinson being arrested and put in jail. There are a lot of news outlets, including the BBC, that have taken their stories about this down. Well, we talked about 3 weeks ago about how the UK, their government basically murdered a child, and then their law enforcement officials said that, we don't want you harassing or saying nasty things about these doctors that essentially murdered this kid. And, of course, at the Ken Bone Zone, we are not under the jurisdiction of the United Kingdom government, and so we told those doctors to go fuck themselves. I will take a similar stance on this, that Tommy Robinson, even though you seem like a pretty crappy guy, anywhere in the world, if you go to jail for a speech or press issue, your government sucks. So if you're one of our UK listeners, your government sucks. They are doing something awful. So that could have easily gone into our It Could Be Worse segment. Apparently over in the UK, freedom of the press and freedom of speech are quickly becoming things of the past, and it is a terrifying trend, especially coming from the country where our ideas of Western freedom and freedom of the speech basically sprang from England with the Magna Carta, the individual freedom of people rather than the collective rights of society. And, now the UK is deciding, like, you know what, we changed our mind. We don't care about individual freedom anymore. And that's a bummer. That makes me sad. So, screw you, UK.
No doubt. I've been listening to a lot of the Hamilton soundtrack lately, so right now I'm, in my mind, I'm just chanting USA over and over.
USA.
Freedom from Brits.
Hamilton's coming to the Fox Theater here in St. Louis in a couple months, but it sold out in like a day. Before I even knew it was coming, it sold out. That was a shame. So I guess I won't be going to that. Might go to Les Mis, Les Miserables later in the early fall when tickets go on sale. I'm going to jump on that, and I promise not to wave my testicles about if I can help it.
I mean, unless you can score free tickets, then.
Well, yeah. I mean, if somebody wants to buy us good like mezzanine tickets in exchange for seeing my testicles, I have no principles when it comes right down to it. So if you want to give me money or things in exchange for looking at my junk, well, let's start talking numbers. Anyway, moving right along to the next reprehensible story, we have Roseanne has been canceled. Holy crap.
Oh, wait, that was Sanford and Son. Never mind.
Yeah, not really the same thing, but whatever. Roseanne was like the trilling harmonica intro, like
That's what it was. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so Roseanne's been canceled because, well, the primary reason is because Roseanne Barr cannot shut her stupid mouth. So at no point during our analysis of this story am I going to say that she should not have been fired, because she absolutely should have been fired for the stupid stuff that she said. When your job is to be a public figure in the media or to represent a brand through your face and your personality and your talent, you absolutely cannot say stuff like this. Like, I'm not free to say stuff like this if I'm in association with my company.
Right.
I work at a power plant in Southern Illinois, and I won't mention which one, because when you work for a company and you're a public figure, you have to clear that with the ownership first and make sure that your message is their message. Otherwise, you do them the courtesy of not pretending that you speak for them. Well, when you're an actor on a popular sitcom, in a way, you kind of speak for your employer for the show all the time, especially when the show is named after you and based on your personality.
Right. You'd think she'd get it when the show is named Roseanne. And so if people are equating her name with racism, that does not look good on the show and the people who write the checks.
Yeah. So, and TV is paid for by advertising. Television, especially broadcast network television, does not get money from basically any other source other than advertising. And when advertisers see you doing something stupid like this with your name attached to it, they start to pull out, usually because of public pressure. Well, ABC wisely jumped ahead of that. They're like, we're not going to wait for advertisers to call. We're not going to wait for public boycotts and, all that crap. Within like 3 or 4 hours of Roseanne's statements, she was fired. She was canceled. And in case you missed her actual statements, holy crap, were they ever stupid. Like, when I saw Roseanne canceled over a racist tweet, my first instinct was, oh, come on, it's probably not that bad. We're just too sensitive. And then within about a minute or so, I Googled around and found the actual story and read the tweet, and I was like, well, I was wrong. It was bad. It was real bad.
Maybe it was taken out of context. Nope.
There's no context here. So,
but it was the Ambien, Ken.
It's the Ambien's fault.
Blame it on the Ambien.
Yeah, I've taken Ambien before, prescribed, of course, and it made me want to put on a KKK hood and burn crosses. It's one of the side effects if you read the fine print. But yeah, what she said was that Valerie Jarrett, who was like a prominent figure in the Obama administration, she looks like, quote, Muslim Brotherhood and Planet of the Apes had a baby, unquote. Well, Valerie Jarrett is black. She's an African American. You cannot compare the looks of a black person to any kind of ape or monkey or anything, not just because that's mean, but also because it has very racist, like expressly racist overtones. That's like a racial pejorative that will get thrown out at black people. I've had neighbors in the past. I had one neighbor who was an extremely racist guy, and he made me afraid that my house was going to get burned down, like being confused for his, based on the way that he treated black people on the street.
Jeez.
I saw him drive by in his pickup truck one time and yell out the window at a kid, like a 12-year-old black kid. This guy started going, ooh, 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 like a gorilla. And I was like, that guy lives there, not here. He lives over there. If you tell your parents about this, because they need to know, but make sure they know that it was that guy and it was not me. I am distancing myself from that because that is evil and hateful. Yeah, but he would do it all the time.
What a turd.
Yeah, he kind of sucked. But anyway, it's Granite City, baby. It's mean streets.
Oh,
things happen.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah,
maybe he'll grow and learn and change his mind someday. I don't know. I don't really keep up with him. But yeah, that's a historically racist thing that has been aimed at black people, like comparing them to gorillas or chimps, because gorilla fur or chimp fur is dark. I guess. Black people don't actually look like chimps, but they're sort of the same color as Jim. I don't know.
Never really got it. Yeah.
I'm putting too much thought into hatred, obviously. I'm giving too much credit to disgusting, hateful people. But I'm guessing that's where it came from, and it's gross, and it's, you know, it's basically saying that black people are a lower form of life. They're lower on the evolutionary ladder, which is patently ridiculous and a hateful and nasty thing to say. So yeah, shame on Roseanne for saying that. And then, like you alluded to, she tweeted out later that night, after she said she was going to quit Twitter, she said, you know, I was on Ambien when I said that. The Ambien made me do it, which is horse crap.
Did you see Ambien's tweet?
Yeah, they responded to her. So one of our side effects is not racism. While that was pretty funny, if I was Big Pharma, I would steer clear of every single possible controversial thing ever. I don't even want to inject myself into the conversation.
That's a good point. I mean, Wendy's can get away with it. Yeah. Maybe not.
Not people that sell low-grade heroin to people who are in pain and try to get them hooked on it. So yeah, I probably would have steered away from that. But it's just nuts. And when she says that the Ambien made her do it, you know, usually I'm the middle of the road guy that I want to see it from everybody's perspective. So I'm going to do my best mental gymnastic devil's advocate here and try to explain to you what she thinks she is saying. And you can judge it for yourself. Spoiler alert, it's still ridiculous and it doesn't hold up and it's stupid. So she is saying something like, I was raised in a different time. My parents were probably racist and like used the N-word at the dinner table and all kinds of nasty, terrible stuff. I'm not like that, but it's deeply ingrained in my subconscious. And when I take Ambien, it takes away my inhibitions and it floats to the top, even though that's not who I consciously am. That's what she's trying to say, I think. And again, I'm giving her too much credit, I'm sure. I think that's what she's trying to say, but that doesn't hold up. You know, if you get drunk and say something horrible to your wife, it's because you're a dick. It's not because you drink too much.
Yeah, I mean, that's up there with my ancestors lived in a time where it was culturally acceptable to punish your wife by putting her over your knee and spanking her. Now, I think that's wrong, but it's ingrained in my DNA somehow from my ancestors. So Ambien sometimes makes me slap my wife.
Yeah, Ambien makes me spank my wife. There are lots of substances that make me spank my wife, but not without her consent. #MeToo.
Very nice. Disclaimer: the Ken Bonzo,
yes,
does not endorse spousal abuse in any way, shape, or form.
Absolutely not. We encourage a light spanking with consent at the most. Nothing that leaves a mark.
Yes,
and not unless she tells you to go for it. Oh man, we're talking about my genitals a lot today.
Man,
but yeah, this whole Roseanne thing. What I said on Twitter about it, I think, is the best way I can put it. Is it's the parable of the scorpion and the frog. If you've never heard that parable, it's a scorpion needs to cross a river, and he happens upon a frog. Well, scorpions cannot swim, and frogs can. So the scorpion says, Mr. Frog, will you please carry me across the river on your back? And the frog says, no, if I do that, you'll sting me, and I will die. And the scorpion says, no, I can't do that, because then we would both drown. So the frog says, that makes sense, and carries the scorpion on his back across the river, and when they get about halfway across the river, the scorpion stings the frog, and they both drown and die. As they're drowning, the frog says, why did you do that? And the scorpion says, I couldn't help it. It was in my nature. The scorpion is a scorpion. That's what it does. It kills things. It stings things. So I think this was just in Roseanne's nature to say stupid, insensitive stuff, and because at some level, she is a disturbed person. Now, I'm not going to say she's an evil person or that I hate her or anything. I will agree with Jimmy Kimmel, though, that she needs some help. Like something's bad wrong with her. She's a very talented person who is also very deeply disturbed by something, and she needs help.
Yeah.
But she also needed to get fired. Like, I'm not saying she should avoid punishment. Like, you have to cancel her show for this. You basically can't not cancel her show over something like this. But I also hope that she gets help and, becomes a better human being, because she's obviously something's wrong with her.
Yeah. Just because it's maybe in her nature doesn't mean that there shouldn't be consequences. And I would hope that even if it is deeply rooted in her, that her nature can change, scorpions can change their claws or something.
Absolutely.
I'm botching it, but
well,
you know what I'm saying?
Being from where we are from, we have both had friends that were raised in extremely racist households.
Oh,
where, where these kids that we went to high school with were taught that black people, Hispanics, Jews, people, basically not white people, are not worth as much as you are worth. You're smarter than them and you're better than them. And some of them were taught it in a well-meaning way, like the Woodrow Wilson white man's burden. Like, you have to look out for these people because they can't do it for themselves, which is racist in its own stupid way. And some of them were taught it in the meaner way, the more traditional way, where these people are stupid and they're not worth your time and they're not as good as you and you should treat them like they're garbage. And many of those people, partially through the benefit of the internet and the big communication revolution that came along when we were in junior high and high school, started to understand that, oh, well, that's a load of horse shit.
Yeah.
But it was still pounded into their brains at a young age. So I got to imagine in their psyche somewhere, that doesn't just go away. It takes conscious effort to get rid of it and to suppress it and to make yourself believe, like, hey, look, my mom and dad from the time I was a baby taught me that 2 + 2 = 5. So on some tiny subconscious level, when you're 45 years old, you see the math problem 2 + 2, you might think 5, but then you think, oh, wait, that's wrong. They lied to me. You can't just get rid of it. You have to consciously work to overcome it. And I hope that Roseanne can consciously work and overcome it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, neuroplasticity. I mean, there's been a lot of study about that in the, last decade or whatever. And it's hard to change your brain patterns, especially deep-rooted things, but it is possible.
Yeah, the younger you are when you get that stuff introduced to you, and the longer you have it repeated to you, the harder it is to change. But it can be changed. Here's hoping. I like to believe that anybody can change, even if they are old and very crazy sounding.
Yeah.
Anyway, on to more pleasant stories. Like in the NFL, now it is against the rules to kneel for the national anthem. And holy shit, I can't believe we're still talking about this story.
Yup.
So here's the long and short of it. Kneeling for the national anthem, I think, is probably not the best way to protest. But if you want to do it, knock yourself out. I don't care. It doesn't offend me. I just don't think it's as effective as you seem to think it is. I think that there's too much like collateral damage or crossfire in this form of protest. But if you feel that's the most effective way for you to protest, do it. This is America, right? But if you're the NFL and you are losing viewership, which they are, and you have data out there, ratings data, that says respondents are claiming that this is part of the reason they don't watch anymore, as a business, you have to say, well, we can't allow that shit anymore. You can't you can't protest on the clock anymore, and the national anthem is part of the show, so you can't do that. So, yes, you should be allowed to protest, but when you're on company time, you can't protest. When I am at my company, I am not allowed to do politics stuff. I can't work on the show. I can't I can't wear my company logo while I'm doing the show because I want to be free to say whatever I want, not just, because my views largely are the same as my company's most of the time. Otherwise, I wouldn't work there. Mm-hmm. But sometimes we disagree because I don't own the joint. So I don't wear my company logo when I'm doing live streams or public events or doing the podcast or whatever. Well, if you're an NFL player, you're wearing the company logo while you're protesting. So I'm okay with them saying you can't do that. But I'm also okay with you if you're a fan, you say, well, I'm not going to watch anymore because you don't treat your players right. Okay, don't then. That's the great thing about entertainment and capitalism. I just think it's shitty that this escapist entertainment that is professional sports now has this giant political thing crammed into the middle of it.
Right. And part of me thinks that the people that care the most are people that aren't watching anyway, but that's just me. One thing that about this that I think the argument kind of swings different ways is the NFL making it against the rules to do something, or are they forcing the players to do something? So it's a difference between preventing something or forcing to do something, and depending on where you swing your argument is usually that's how you argue it. And it's like, I don't think, a business should make somebody do something, but I don't think that doesn't seem to be the case. They're just preventing them from kneeling, which, I mean, in terms of America and freedom, it's kind of sad and ironic. But then my business side goes, yeah, they're business, they're losing money. But then my realistic side goes, why do I even care? I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't even watch football.
It's
so.
Yeah, it's unbelievable to me that this controversy is still going on. And Donald Trump was asked about this, of course, and he said, actually, I don't care what he said, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Be busier being the president. Quit injecting yourself
Get
into
off Twitter.
this. Quit making everything about you. Quit making Memorial Day about you and your economic numbers, dummy. Just when you do something good, you have to almost intentionally do something stupid. Oi. But yeah, I mean, I understand the NFL, the company, saying you can't kneel. The players want to have the freedom to kneel, so I think the compromise that they've come to is, okay, well, if you kneel, your team will get fined. You will not get fined, is the actual rule. So, if your team ownership wants to get pissy at you and, like, bench you or whatever because you're costing them money, I guess that's up to the individual teams. But the players themselves do not get fined. The owners get fined. And a couple of owners have come out and said, yeah, we'll go ahead and pay the fines, kneel if you want to. Which, that's actually weird to me. The owners are the ones who voted this policy in, and they voted unanimously in favor of this rule.
Oh, really?
And then at least one owner has come out and said, yeah, I'll pay the fines for you. So the owner of the New York Jets voted for this rule, but then immediately said, I'll pay the fine on your behalf. Kneel if you want to kneel. But I wish you wouldn't. His statement was something like, I don't want you to kneel and I don't agree with you doing it, but you're free to do it if you want. Well, that's essentially your boss saying, yeah, go ahead and protest on company time. So you can go ahead and do that. But yeah, unless you get that approval from your boss, don't try it out at your company. Like
right.
The kids that did the walkout for March for Our Lives, that group, a few weeks ago, well, they did that from school. And that's entirely one thing. You can do a walkout from school. If you stage a walkout from your job, protesting something, expect to get fired because jobs and school are not the same thing.
And it would be one thing. Is the NFL making them? I kind of want to read the official rules, like "Thou shalt not kneel" or "You must stand during the national anthem."
Yeah, I don't think it uses the word kneel. It says that you have to stand for the national anthem, and if you don't want to, you can't be out on the field while it's being played. You can stand.
So they made a.
Yeah, so your alternate form of protest, basically, that we're offering you is stay in the locker room. So some players might choose to stay in the locker room as their new form of protest, and hey, with social media being what it is, you might get a good many viewers on your Facebook Live or Periscope or something kneeling in the locker room. I don't freaking know. A lot of these guys have a million Twitter followers. So that might work out for you. Or you can kneel on the field during the national anthem and your team has to pay a fine. So, I don't know. It seems like an okay compromise, I guess. I can't believe that we made such a big deal out of it. And the NFL, to their credit, is actually, they've pledged $90 million over 7 years. They have a committee with players and owners on it to doing, it's called the Social Justice Committee, which is a really cringy and stupid, horrible name. But it's supposed to be about issues like unfair prison sentencing for people of color and stuff like that. Things that I have no idea what the hell you're supposed to do about it if you're a football player. But at least the NFL is recognizing social issues and throwing money at it. It's not like they're a totalitarian regime that's trying to control their players and all that.
Sure.
And all the folks that are saying, like, oh, yeah, this is just like slavery, telling your players what they can and cannot do. No, it's not. Shut the hell up. You get paid a lot of money to play a game that you like to play, and then the owners tell you what you are and are not allowed to do while you're playing. And if you don't like it, you can be an accountant.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm a slave at my job. If I wanted to go and do something else, or if I didn't like company policy, I would be free to do that. But I don't, because I'm good at my job and I like it, and they pay me decent money. So, yeah. Anyway, on to the focus of every show ever in the history of all shows on the internet. at least for the last 2 years, Donald Trump. So this week we have one good Donald Trump and one bad Donald Trump. We have Donald Trump signed right to try legislation, which in my mind is a very, very good thing. Right to try, for those of you who are not familiar, if you have a terminal disease and you're dying, and there's some experimental drug out there that has not passed FDA clinical trials that supposedly might help, the right to try legislation gives you the right to say, okay, I'll take that. And, of course, it doesn't mean that the company has to give it to you. The company might say, like, okay, we'll give it to you if you pay a bunch of money or if you, let us collect your data and you be part of our clinical trial or whatever. But before, you did not have the right to take those experimental medications. And you had to just, die. And some of the people that were arguing against this said, well, it could be dangerous. Well, you know what else is dangerous? Just dying.
Right.
So, if I'm dying and there is some medicine that says, well, this might help you, but it hasn't been through FDA approval, and it might also make you grow a foot out of your left eyeball, I'll be like, well, fuck, give it to me. I'm going to die anyway.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Yeah, that was Michael Scott quote right there.
Wayne Gretzky / Michael Scott. So that I thought was good. Good President Trump. And then he immediately followed that up with tariffs again, reigniting the tariff debate just today, saying that they were going to put tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and I want to say there was a third country in there that I forgot to put in the notes. It might be Japan. But they're putting tariffs directly on steel and aluminum imports from those countries. And we talked about tariffs for a good 15 minutes or so on a previous episode. You can go and watch all the previous episodes if you haven't. Watch them several times and tell your friends to do the same. But tariffs, I don't think, are a great idea in the macroeconomic world when you're in the United States position. Because our position in the world is we are the biggest consumer on the planet of stuff. We use more stuff and we buy more stuff than anybody else in existence. So we're putting an extra tax on importing that stuff. Well, when you import a lot of stuff and you put a tax on that stuff, the companies or the countries that are selling you that stuff, they don't pay that tax. They just increase the price to account for the tax. Yeah. There's not a corporation in the world that pays taxes. There's no such thing as a company that pays taxes. They just increase prices of stuff so that you, as the consumer, end up paying the taxes. We are the big consumer, and the companies that we're putting the taxes on are the big suppliers. So all we're going to do is make stuff more expensive. And, oh, by the way, they can just turn around and do the same thing to the stuff we try to sell them. So Mexico has already replied, saying that they're going to put taxes or tariffs on pork bellies and apples, which
oddly specific.
Yeah, really, the list they put out was incredibly specific. It had 5 or 6 other things on it, but pork bellies and apples were the two biggest dollar things. I didn't realize that Mexico liked apples so much, but I guess apples wouldn't grow very good in Mexico. It's too hot and dry in most of the country. And apples like more of a Pacific Northwestern-y climate for most apples. So I guess it makes sense that we export a bunch of them. Well, now we're not going to export as many because they're going to be too expensive for people to buy that want them.
Jeez.
The same thing with aluminum and steel that we're importing here to the U.S. It's going to get so expensive that people won't want to buy it anymore, and then all of a sudden the overall economy will start to slow. It seems like Trump says he wants a trade war, like a trade war is a good or fun thing, like he's just doing it for giggles. Well, that's a stupid idea. Especially when the economy is booming like it is now. The economy is doing super well. Unemployment is incredibly low, and we're going to start screwing with it. Trump's starting to show signs of raccoon fingers, which is the inability to keep your damn hands out of stuff.
All I know is if Japan makes tariffs, there's a few Japanese scotches I love, and I love their ramen and their sushi. If stuff like that starts going up in price, I'm gonna be pissed.
They're gonna put a big tariff on Nintendo, and I will throw a fit.
No. Yeah.
New Pokemon game's gonna have a 10% tariff on it, and I will protest in the damn streets.
My kids, all of a sudden, they would go to buy Pokemon Go balls, and They're more expensive.
Balls. That's the title of this show is Balls.
Episode 31. Balls.
Balls. Yeah, so that's enough Trump direct stuff. We got one more Trump related story, and that is Samantha Bee, who is, she's got her own talk show on TBS, and she does like a political talk show. She said some really, really nasty stuff about Ivanka Trump, which,
Yep.
well, screw you, Samantha Bee. That was a terrible thing to say. So, Samantha Bee on her show, which is on basic cable, by the way. So all of the stuff she says gets bleeped out, but she says it anyway for shock value. She's talking about Ivanka Trump put a picture on one of her social medias of her holding her baby. So Ivanka Trump's got this cute little baby, and she's holding it. And she says, "Oh, that's my love on Sunday morning," or whatever. Well, there's this controversy going on right now where families of immigrants are being torn apart and immigrants' children are being taken away from them and all this, which we could do a whole segment on that. We'll do the long and short of it here is that if you get arrested for being an undocumented immigrant and you have kids, yes, they take your kids and they put them in foster care. And you know why? Because you got arrested and you're in jail. They don't send your kids to jail with you. So they take your kids, they put them in foster care. That's the immigrant families being torn apart. Well, we can talk a whole lot about changing immigration law and not arresting so many immigrants or whatever. But under the current law, these people are eligible to get arrested for whatever their crime is, in addition to being undocumented immigrants. And then their kids go into foster care while the parents are incarcerated. You're not going to send the kids to jail with them. And, oh, by the way, Trump did not do this. This has been the law since the Obama administration.
Right.
This is not Trump's idea. This is not Trump saying, hey, you know what would be fun if we went and stole a whole bunch of kids from a bunch of Mexicans. This is business as usual for immigration law enforcement the way it has been for many years now. And unless you want to send kids to jail, the only alternative would be, okay, well, we'll just not arrest the immigrants anymore. Well, Trump's not going to do that. He's going to arrest the immigrants. He's made that extremely clear. So, take what you want from that. That's just what's going to happen. But then Samantha Bee says how insensitive it is of you to take this picture with your baby while immigrants' kids are getting taken away from them. Well, like we said, the immigrants' kids have been getting taken away from them for a long time now. This has been an ongoing issue. This is not a Trump issue. This is not a Trump-specific issue. We're making it into a Trump-specific issue because all the cool kids hate Donald Trump. It's been going on for a long time. We're turning it into a Trump issue, and then Samantha Bee turns it into an Ivanka Trump issue, saying that it's insensitive of you to show yourself happy with your kid when immigrants are getting their kids taken away, and that Ivanka Trump is, quote, a feckless cunt. What an awful and disgusting thing to say. That is the one word, the C word. In my house growing up, I could say anything I wanted to. I didn't because I was a shy, reserved, very religious kid. But sometimes, like in a burst of anger, I would say something. And usually my mom would say, hey, language, or just whatever. But mostly she didn't care. If I said that word, she would have slapped me in the face until my ears rang.
Yeah.
That is the most impolite word, according to Ann Bone, that there is. She would never, ever say that unless it was against somebody that she absolutely despised, like some kind of inhuman monster. And she would not allow it to be said around her. And good for you, Mom, for saying that. I know my mom's not listening because she says political talk is boring. But just in case somebody plays her this clip, hi, Mom, and thanks for teaching me that that's a terrible word.
Sorry that you chose this episode to listen to where we first talked about your boy's testicles for the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, she's heard that story. But, Samantha Bee goes on to say, you should wear something tight and low cut to get Dad to listen to you about immigration. So basically implying that, hey, you're this terrible word that you should never say in polite company, and your dad's a pedophile. That's a really horrible thing to say. And all because Ivanka posted a picture of her and her baby. So I guess the theory is here that you're not allowed to say that you're happy or show pictures of yourself being happy if there is an unhappy person somewhere in the world. So, like later tonight, I'm going to see Star Wars. I'm going to go see the Han Solo movie with a friend of mine. When I get home, if I choose to talk about how good it was and how much I liked it, which I guess we'll find out if I do, then that was evil and insensitive of me because there are starving children in India.
Right.
That's not how the world works. You're allowed to express your happiness and your contentment and your joy, even if other people are unhappy. The only time that would be inappropriate is if you were, like, if you made a picnic in Slumtown and you were, like, eating caviar and drinking bottles of champagne while on the other side of a razor wire fence there were a bunch of starving people looking at you. You know, that's not what this was. That's not what Ivanka did. So shame on Samantha Bee and her show for doing this. I've never said this publicly before because I don't like to call people out, but Samantha Bee's show, coincidentally, is the only show to ever stand me up for an interview, and they've done it twice. So twice they've had me waiting around for them, for their camera crew, to do interviews at various events and conventions and things that we've both been at, and twice they have not shown up after I've moved flights or, rearranged schedules to be there for them. They've stood me up twice. So I guess between that and the comments that they made, you can see how classy of an organization Samantha Bee is running on TBS.
No doubt. One thing that bothers me about the story, and I don't like people that will say they defend Roseanne by saying, well, see, Samantha Bee said something bad. Well, no, they both did something wrong. But there is a difference. Everyone knows what Roseanne said was just plain stupid and hateful and racist. Samantha Bee, at least, like, she tried to cover it up with some sort of faux justice, which actually dupes a lot of people, which really annoys me. Like, I mean, what she said wasn't as bad as I think Roseanne did, but still, the fact that people are like, well, she was talking about an overall justice issue, and no, she's being hateful, and she's trying to cover it up with that, and it's a thin veneer that if you're smart enough to realize, you should realize, no, she's just being hateful.
It's all meanness and hate. What Roseanne did, I agree, was worse, and she needs to be fired. I'm not calling for Samantha Bee to be fired, by the way. I don't watch her show because her crew was mean to me, but I'm not calling for her to be fired. But yeah, it was mean and it's hateful. And actually the thing that bothers me about it the most is what you hear at all of these like live talk shows is the echo chamber audience. It's just so easy to rile people up when you have the right audience. And you can go to one of these political talk shows, which are extremely left-leaning, and you can get up and do your monologue, and your monologue could be the same every night. It could just be, President Trump is orange and stupid and his hair is ugly. And not only would the people laugh, they get up, they stand up and give you a standing ovation and scream and call you a genius because all the cool kids hate Donald Trump. So it's shooting fish in a barrel. And the audience reaction when she said this really, really hateful comment was hooting and screaming and cheering and just absolute love and joy from the audience, which disturbs me that kind of hatred is just accepted.
Right. It's a cheap, easy way to feel justified for your hatred.
Hatred is wrong no matter who it comes from, and not all hatred is equal, and it's not all the same, but it is all bad.
Right.
Things don't have to be equal for them to be bad. And to the point that you were making where like people defend Roseanne saying that, well, Samantha Bee did something bad. Well, bad behavior does not excuse bad behavior. Bill O'Reilly is a giant blowhard and a dummy, and he lost his show because he did a lot of sexual harassment and stupid stuff. But the one good point that I heard him make on his radio show years ago was that. He said, bad behavior does not justify bad behavior. And I thought, wow, that is actually a really good point. And then he's on almost every other issue, he's usually dumb. But on that one, I think he nailed it right on the head. Bad behavior does not justify bad behavior. So, with me, when the right says like, oh, well, the leftist media is super evil to us, I don't care. Try to be above that. And when the left says like, well, Donald Trump is an evil bigot and a racist and a Nazi, like, well, if you really believe that, try to be above that. Don't stoop to that level. Bad behavior does not justify bad behavior. Just because Susie pulled your pigtails does not mean it is okay to push her down and skin her knee.
Yeah, if you can't distinguish or differentiate evil and hatred and wrong, like between like people that you do or don't like, if you can't just see evil and hatred and bad things for what they are, then please remove yourself from the adults table in the the table of conversation in the world, and go sit with the kids, because you're not mature enough to do this.
You and all the other children go outside and practice falling down.
Yeah.
But yeah, shame on Samantha Bee for doing that. Oh, and my story about her standing me up twice, don't get me wrong, that's not saying that I am a super important guy and how dare she and all that. It's just that when somebody moves their schedule for you to do something, you should stick to that. Or at the very least, call them and tell them, like, oh, we had to cancel because blah. So just them, that really rubbed me the wrong way that they didn't pay me that courtesy of like, hey, we can't do your oil change today because we overbooked. Okay, it doesn't matter if I'm a big deal or if I'm like a lowly D-lister. You still deserve that dignity, which they did not afford me, which made me very upset. Let's see. In international news, we have 2 people in England got married. One of them had red hair.
Harry Potter.
That's all.
No, I mean, Ronald Weasley.
Yeah, that's all I even friggin' care about in that story. Two really rich people got married.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Weasley and Hermione got married. Awesome.
Yay.
Oh no, it's the royal family people. Oh wait. Oh, I don't care.
Moving on from the stupid royal wedding. Way cooler foreign journalism story. Arkady Babchenko, who is a Russian journalist, there was a report earlier in the week that he had been found shot and killed, apparently by Putin allies. This kind of thing in Russia happens all the time. The Russian government or its agents or allies find people that are dissidents or public dissidents, especially journalists, and they kill them, and they get away with it because who's going to stop them? With this one was especially interesting because it turns out it didn't happen. It was the Ukrainian government helped Arkady fake it to smoke out the people that were actually trying to kill him.
Oh, wow.
So there were actual Russian agents trying to kill Arkady, and the Ukrainian government worked with him, with Mr. Babchenko, and faked his death to draw out these political assassins. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Nice.
Arkady Babchenko is extremely critical of Putin and the Kremlin publicly, which is a very dangerous thing. So hopefully this led to, officials actually being able to catch some of these murderers. And of course, Russian officials aren't going to do anything about it. But
sure.
The Ukrainian government might do something. Ukraine is not a huge fan of Russia right now since, just a few years ago, Russia marched into Ukraine and illegally stole the Crimean region from them. And the international community said, no, we don't freaking care. Screw yourself, Ukraine. You're too poor and have funny accents. We don't give a shit. So, yeah, good for them. I thought that was super cool. Back to the United States, we only have 2 more stories. We have, in sexual harassment extravaganza news, Harvey Weinstein has been indicted in New York judicial court for rape charges, and he is facing a whole lot of time in jail. If convicted, he may never see the outside world again. Him and Bill Cosby both. So,
well, shucks.
Hooray. It took a long time to finally proceed to charges, but he did surrender himself. I don't know, I guess to try to get leniency. The police did not come to his house. He surrendered himself before any arrest attempt was made. And that looks good on you if you're a defendant. If you're a defendant in a crime out there, talk to a lawyer for sure. But one of the things your lawyer is going to tell you is like, okay, turn yourself in. Do not admit that you did it, but turn yourself in and get the process started. And that makes you look good to the judge. So that seems to be what Mr. Weinstein has done. But the evidence against him seems overwhelming, and he's probably going to go to jail forever. So goodbye, Harvey. We'll miss you, except that we won't.
We won't.
Yeah. I know what will miss you, the ficus that you were jizzing into. It's going to miss you a lot. It's going to be like, no, Mr. Harvey, I love you. Please come back to me. Actually, that ficus was probably tired of getting spooged on.
Oh yeah.
I've taken enough of your Drek Weinstein.
All these years.
I've been putting up with this for far too long. Photosynthesis is difficult when you're crusty. Pride myself on being a wordsmith, painting that image of a cum-covered ficus plant in your brain.
Your nuts was, I mean.
No, yeah, you can see them. Close your eyes right now. You can see my ball sack. Actually, close your eyes and look into a light, like look into a light bulb. And that image that you see through your eyes, all those veins and stuff, that's pretty much my balls, just not as red. So you are kind of seeing it when you close your eyes. I'm not going to stop talking about it. I'm going to come up with another ball story for next week. Man,
it's going to be like a recurring segment.
Yeah. We need
now
new
it's time for
segments.
Ken's balls.
Next week we're doing Josh's philosophy, and then the week after that we're talking about Ken's balls some more. Last story of the night. Unfortunately, it's not the happiest story, but it's not the worst story either. At least it's not the freshest horrible story. So the Parkland shooter, whose name you'll recall we've never mentioned on this show, we were actually the first media outlet to publicly say that we were no longer going to say the names of these shooters on air. We said that after the Las Vegas shooting, that we would not mention the names of these shooters. And now that's a popular thing that a lot of media outlets are saying. I suspect that they have listened to this show and got that idea from us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sticking to that because it is factually true that we said that before any of these other major media outlets. But anyway, that Parkland shooter, he made some cell phone video the day of the shooting and in the days leading up to the shooting that really corroborates the idea that you should not mention the names of these shooters. So I subjected myself to watching these videos, and I honestly wish that I had not, because they are disturbing. Looking into the face of real evil like that, hearing the tone of this kid's voice and the joy in his words was really sad. And here are a few quotes. And this is the last segment of the show. So if you turn the show off right now, I would not blame you, because some of these are unsettling. But anyway, here they go. Quote number 1, "When you see me on the news, you'll know who I am. You're all gonna die. Pew, 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 pew. Ah, yeah, can't wait." Quote number 2, "My name is redacted, and I'm going to be the next school shooter of 2018. My goal is at least 20 people." And quote number 3, "Today is the day it all begins. The day of my massacre shall begin. All the kids in school will run in fear and hide. From the wrath of my power, they will know who I am." So a recurring theme in these sick, evil words is that he wanted people to know who he is and to remember him. Well, Sarah Strickland, Cameron Kasky, David Hogg, Kyle Kashuv, just to name a few. These are kids, these are people that deserve to be remembered for their efforts on either side of the aisle to try to do something positive and bring something positive out of a tragedy. This monster, who murdered 17 people, deserves to be forgotten in a hole for the rest of time. Okay? If you've ever watched like the 10 Commandments, there was the scene where Yul Brynner as Ramses, he accused Moses of trying to raise an army against Pharaoh. And then Moses was able to prove, no, I'm not raising an army. I'm building you a city, Pharaoh, because that's what you commanded me to do, because I love you, adopted dad, Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said, "Ramses, in my mind, you have accused your brother falsely, and your name is going to be stricken from columns, and your name is going to be stricken from things." And then later, when it turned out, or when Moses murdered the Egyptian and was exiled by Pharaoh, Ramses was restored, and Pharaoh said, "I want the name of Moses stricken from every tablet, from every wall, from every column in Egypt. I want his name erased from history." That's how we used to punish people in the ancient world. Apart from your execution or exile or imprisonment, we would erase the tale of your deeds from recorded history to the very extent possible. Now, in the modern world, the worse you are, the more we write your name on the heavens. We glorify you and put your name everywhere. And in our sick, fame-addicted culture, which I have seen from the inside, that is what these disturbed individuals want. It is a definite factor in the motivation. It's not 100% for all of them. It's not the biggest factor for all of them, but it is definitely a contributing factor. Is they want to be remembered. They want to get up on the scoreboard of murderers. And that's common not just to mass shooters, but a lot of serial killers too. They wanted to rack up the score. They wanted to be remembered as being the best, being the most prolific. And it's sick. So I would like to apologize. Kyle may or may not listen to the show sometimes. He's a very busy kid. Sometimes he doesn't get to. Cameron, you're probably not listening, but if you do, both of you, I just want to apologize that we as a culture have enabled this monster to reach out and hurt you again. We've enabled this guy to continue making a name for himself by throwing his name back and forth, and we have to stop. And so these terrible clips show three things. They show that fame is a factor in these awful, awful crimes. They show that this particular shooter, the Parkland shooter, was mentally competent for his actions, knew what he was going to do, and then carried it out after planning it. So that'll screw him in court real bad, hopefully. And then three, it shows that evil categorically, undeniably exists. Evil is a real thing. We don't like to believe in it. We like to chalk everything up to mental illness. If only this kid had been taking the right pills, or if only mom and dad had hugged him more, or if only whatever, this wouldn't have happened. Well, maybe we could have helped. Maybe we could have kept guns out of his hands. Maybe we could have even made him well-balanced enough to never murder anybody. But evil exists. It absolutely is a real thing. And some people just plain are evil. And all you can do is try to mitigate the harm they can do.
Well put.
Yeah, so it's kind of a bummer thing to end the show on, but I wanted to make sure that stuck in everybody's mind. Please stop giving these monsters the attention that they crave so much. We'll continue to talk about stories with shootings as they are relevant, but we will not mention the names of these people, and we encourage you not to learn their names. The most recent shooting in Santa Fe, Texas, I do not know that kid's name because I intentionally have not looked at it. Like, I've read stories about it, and if it starts to mention any names, I skip them. I skim past them. So I couldn't name that kid, for $1 million, and that's the way I want to keep it. And I encourage everybody listening to please do the same.
Word.
All right. Well, sorry we ended on kind of a low note, but promise we'll have more craziness and fun next week as we analyze the news, and maybe, if you're good, some more stories about my testicles. But until then...
Say it's true.
Yeah, I'll do my very best. And I'll never tell you a lie about my nutsack either. All my nutsack stories are true. But until then, I'm Ken Bone, and I'm alongside my good friend Josh Burkett in the Great Frozen North, and we both bid you a good evening. I approve this sweater.